It's been 3 years since we've seen Jon Jones step foot in the octagon, and 3 years in MMA is an eternity, especially when we're talking about those years in terms of a layoff. Whether or not ring rust is a real thing is one of those age-old questions in our sport. While I do think all fighters respond to the circumstances differently, I personally believe that it's something that's very real. And while I do think Jones is a generational talent and unlike any other fighter this game has ever produced, I think it's entirely possible he feels the effect after all of that time away from the spotlight. But I also think, despite the fact that he could be slightly compromised and maybe not at his very best, at least in that very first round, that he's so exceptionally talented that he still has the ability to perform well anyways. Jones has many exceptional attributes. The dynamic yet patient and accurate offensive striking skills, his positioning, his ability to out-grapple and out-wrestle any fighter no matter what their credentials may be, his athleticism, his ability to brutalize people from that top position on the ground because of his freakishly long wingspan, and just his overall fight IQ, which is a big part in what makes him able to make it look so easy. But in my opinion, above all of those great traits, his best quality is the ability to perform when the cage door locks and the ref gets out of the way. It's his ability to perform no matter what extenuating circumstances he may be competing under at the time that separates him from the rest. And God knows he's had his fair share of problems outside of the cage over the years throughout his career. And he had them right from the moment when he won the title after he shocked the world with his seemingly effortless dismantling of the revered Shogun back in 2011. For all of this excellence and incredible things he's accomplished, there's always been a steady stream of turmoil right from the jump and throughout his entire career. And if you're to go back and get into the details of what those issues were, when they happened, and what was going on with his career during those times and what he was able to do, it really validates my idea that it's his ability to perform when it comes time to throw down that makes him who he is. Which is why I think that whether ring rust is evident or not, a reinvigorated Jon Jones is going to come in there this weekend and excite the fans once again. For as much as I think that the 3-year layoff is kind of a disadvantage, because after all, the best Jon Jones we ever saw is when he was his most active, I think in this situation, the time off is just what the doctor ordered for a guy like Jones to continue on with his greatness. The method and the timing in which he's moving up in weight is perfect. He took a long time to put on the weight, and although he's no spring chicken at 35 years old, historically, heavyweights have always been more prone to perform at their best at more advanced ages. When you look at his most recent fights, they're kind of uninspired, and depending on who you talk to, controversial. Where he was at that point in his career with his last 3 fights, he was expected to run through Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, and Dominic Reyes. Yet those fights were extremely competitive. With respect to those guys, I think the way those contests went wasn't an issue of Jones's eroding talent. I think it was a situation of eroded desire and burnout from a prolonged title reign coupled with a litany of personal out-of-the-cage issues, all of which played out in the public eye. Dealing with that kind of pressure for that long makes it impossible to maintain optimal performance. Anyone who follows this sport knows that when it comes to MMA, no matter how much conviction you may have about something, you always have to be ready for that belief to be tipped on its head and shattered on a whim. Jones could conceivably go out there and lay an egg, but that scenario in no way aligns with the pattern we've seen out of him ever since he landed in the UFC back in 2008. Ciryl Gane is an amazing talent. I think if we're to see this thing play out on the feet, it's easy to visualize Gane getting the better of Jones in the striking exchanges. But above all else, I think what Gane has going for him the most is the fact that he's not going to be intimidated. I believe he respects him, but this isn't going to be one of those situations where Jones has the fight won before it starts, which is something he's had the luxury of a lot throughout his career. Gane is going to come right after Jones, and that clash is going to be something to behold. We also have to remember that this is going to be a fight that Jon Jones learns a lot about himself. It's one thing to train and spar as a heavyweight, but this is going to be the first time in Jones's career that he steps foot in the octagon, going full speed at 230 plus pounds against somebody who's bigger than him. Not even Jones knows how his body's going to react or how those extra pounds he's carrying and how those extra pounds he's fighting against is going to be different than what he's experienced at light heavyweight. And even as I start to think about those things, I find myself starting to sway a little more towards the possibility that his welcome back party gets spoiled by the French kickboxer. But then I think back to all the times throughout the years that I thought all week long that Jones's next opponent could be the one to tip over the apple cart. And how many times back in the day that I thought Jones may be in for a rough night, right up until the moment that his music hits, the image of him walking through the bowels of the arena hits the screen, and my mind instantly changes to having no doubt in my mind that he's about to be victorious. So there's a lot to be excited about for this weekend, because the return of Jon Jones is something very special.